Christopher London. Hey guys, thank you so much for tuning in to the Buzz. You guys know we already on. We're on 24 hours a day, 7 days a week with the finest in broadcasting you can find anywhere around the globe. Music, talk, sports, entertainment, comedy, and not more. All right, I see Tanisha Holmes tuning in. I see my brother. Oh, there's Tanisha. Hey, Tanisha.
Hola. I am
Hey, how
trying
are
to
you?
work on doing pretty good. Can you all see me okay?
No.
Oh, yes.
Not really.
Uh,
Let
uh,
me see what's going
well,
on here. What in the world? It's kind of
yeah,
flickering a
with
little
the
bit.
background.
Huh?
Yes, it is. Can see
Hmm.
you now. Okay.
That was weird,
You know
wasn't it?
those virtual backgrounds are a little tricky.
Yeah, they can
You
be.
have to stay as
Hmm.
still. Yeah, you have to stay as still as possible. As still as
Oh,
possible.
yeah.
And Tanisha, I want you to meet. Oh, there. Oh, yeah, there's Tiffany. Hey, Tiffany.
Hello,
Hmm.
hello, good evening.
All right, good, good, good. Tiffany and Tanisha, I want you to meet your groove brother, Mr. T. Air Van Meter. He's in Southern California.
Okay.
Hello, how you
Hi.
doing?
I remember,
Hello.
matter of fact, he's the founder of the LA grad chapter.
Hmm.
Okay.
And I'm
Nice to
so
meet.
pleased to have you on, Tier. And also, we have a special guest, Miss Naisha Frey. Before I get into that, guys, tell your friends. You still have time. I sent most of you guys have the links to the broadcast, so send it out to your friends. And matter of fact, it's a program for all ages, and we talk about health, education, business, architecture, the arts. You name it, we do it, and we cover it. And we want to showcase the best in our culture, and that's what Groove Swing Speaks is all about. I'll give you guys a little background. Tien and I, as a matter of fact, he and I started along with Rob and a few other brothers. Started a show called Groove Talk Radio. And Tia, how many years does that go back? How many years ago?
Um,
6?
Man, it's been a minute. I don't even know what year it was when we discovered you living 2 blocks away from me. um,
It
um,
was absolutely incredible.
but
Yeah,
I don't know. It probably maybe at least 6 or 7 years ago. Um,
absolutely, absolutely.
and listen, let me
So
just say, man, I'm glad to see how what you've done with this show. I mean, this has really blossomed. So, man, I am very proud of you, brother. I'm happy to be back. But man,
I'm
I
glad you're
am
here.
very
I'm
proud of
glad.
you. You are the talk. A lot of people are buzzing about Studio W and this Groove Swing Speaks show. So I just want to give you your props, brother.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Well, we really appreciate it. You know, it's a show for the community. But now, without further ado, we have a special guest on, and this is her second time on Groove Swing Speaks. So that means that she's back by popular demand. That's Miss Naisha Frey. Hey, Naisha, how are you?
She's on mute.
Oh, your mic
Okay,
is
now
muted.
I'm back.
Yeah.
There we
Hello,
go.
hello,
Yeah.
hello. Thank you for having me back. Yes, my name is Naisha Frey. And Tanisha, I can relate to you in these crazy virtual backgrounds. Uh, so we'll hang in there with it and make it do what it do. But I'm glad to be a part of the show again.
Yeah. Welcome.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And so I called both Tiffany and Tanisha because I wanted them to do the honors of reading your bio. And since I called Tiffany first, Tiffany, would you do the honors, please?
Sure. All right. Miss Naisha Frey, MA, MSPH, is a trailblazer in health equity, community engagement, and advocacy. A proud Rattler and alumna of Florida A&M University, FAMU, Naisha combines her deep academic foundation with an unwavering commitment to empowering marginalized communities. As the CEO of Naisha Frey Consulting LLC, she develops community informed solutions to address systematic barriers, amplify marginalized voices, and promote social justice. Naisha is also the producer and host of the podcast Questions You Didn't Ask, where she delves into critical and often overlooked conversations surrounding health, wellness, and social justice. One of the latest series in the third season of her podcast, Ageless Intimacy, Real Talk for Women 40 Plus, explores women's health and sexual well being with honesty and empowerment. With over 2 decades of expertise, Naisha has earned accolades for her transformative leadership, including her role as a guest panelist for the 70th Full Council meeting of the Presidential Advisory Council on HIV/AIDS. Through her work, she bridges gaps between healthcare institutions, research, and the communities they serve, always championing inclusivity and equity. Today, we are thrilled to welcome Naisha to Groove Swing Speaks, where she'll share more about her journey, her impactful work with Naisha Frey Consulting LLC, and the inspiration behind questions you didn't ask. Everyone, let's welcome Miss Naisha Frey.
Hey, welcome, Naisha. Thank you so much.
Hi.
Thank you. Yes. And so, guys, it's a lot to unpack here. It's a lot to. That's why she had to come back a second time. We couldn't squeeze it all in the first time she was here. This is only a 60-minute show. So I'm going to let Tia. Did you get a chance to? I know you did read her bio, and if so, what questions do you have for Naisha?
Well, I'm not sure if she is. Well, she sounds qualified to answer, but the question that I had on my mind foremost is the rate that Black women are dying during childbirth. It's a lot higher than other women, and I just wanted to hear her opinion on what's going on with Black women and this whole dying from reproduction.
So, unfortunately, I don't have those numbers right off the top of my head. But what I can tell you, thanks to our good old trusty technology, is that in 2023, 50.3 deaths per 100,000 live births were among non-Hispanic Black women. It's the highest rate across racial groups in the US. This rate is more than 3 times higher than the rate for white women, which is 14.5 deaths per 100 live births, and significantly higher than the rates for Hispanic women, which is 12.4 deaths per 100 live births, and Asian women, which is 10.7.
Because she is a wealth of knowledge as far as that is concerned. And, you know, it was something else that I saw too, and it was regarding, you know, her work. And I think you read this too, CEO of Naisha Frey Consulting LLC. Naisha, you back?
Yeah.
Actually, she wasn't frozen. It was you, William. She was speaking. You cut her off.
No, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
No, she froze on my end. Okay, I'm
Yeah.
Technology do what it do, y'all. Just like I
Yeah,
lost
we
my
know.
background all of a sudden. I don't know
Yeah.
why.
I know, right?
okay.
So
I'm sorry.
yeah,
Okay.
that's all right. That's all right. And I don't mind repeating. Hopefully you guys can hear me. Yes, the data
Okay.
is shocking when it comes to maternal mortality and rates for Black women. And I think just to put it in a quick summary, Black women do have the highest rates across racial groups in the US related to deaths per live births, meaning that their children may die. And the rate is more than 3 times higher than the rate for white women and significantly higher than the rates for Hispanic women and Asian women. And so this is a challenge. It is an area that I have discussed in my podcast, Questions You Didn't Ask, with a woman who is a doula. And I have, heard other folks talking about this issue. And a lot of it really boils down to.
I'm sorry. You said, forgive my ignorance. You said a doula?
Yes.
So tell me what that is, please.
Yes. So a doula is a person who is trained. They're non-clinical professionals, so they're not necessarily a nurse. They're not a medical doctor. but they provide emotional, physical, and informational support to a person during and shortly after birth. So they do not deliver babies or provide medical care, but they focus on advocacy, comfort, continuous presence, helping people navigate hospitals, birth plans, and recovery with dignity and informed choices. So doulas are really important for Black birthing people because they tend to help with improving birth satisfaction, shorten labors, reducing the number of C-sections. And I will say that, some people need to have C-sections, but not everyone needs to have a C-section. And there are some health outcomes that can be detrimental to both the baby and the child as it relates to C-sections. But they can help a mother make informed decisions. They can also help to communicate with healthcare providers during the birthing process and even in the planning process up to that point. And so that's a lot of what they do. They improve birth outcomes, especially for low income, Medicaid insured, or at risk parents. So it's a very important resource that's available in our community. So when we think about kind of what doulas are and what they provide, it also kind of points to what's lacking for people that don't have access to doulas, right? They may not have a good understanding, not just of their own body and the changes that their body is going through when they become pregnant, but also and the need for things like prenatal and the care that they need before the baby is born, right? To make sure that they're monitored appropriately by a healthcare provider that's caring and thorough. But also that they may need help just navigating the health system, getting access to resources, understanding what their options and their choices are, and even things like managing stress, right? Helping them to navigate those major life changes that happen as a part of bringing a new life into the world. And then after the baby is born, having someone there that can help observe them, that they can talk to and share what their symptoms are, share where their mind is and what their mental health is, and helping them navigate even things like, postpartum depression or different feelings that they might be experiencing. As well as paying attention to the health and well-being of the child. So unfortunately, many of us are oftentimes neglected in the healthcare system. And we're often treated as though we should know things. Regardless of how many children we have, each pregnancy is going to be unique. Each baby is unique. And so sometimes there's the assumption that, well, if you've already had a baby, what's the need for something like a person like a doula, a professional like a doula? But the point is that each pregnancy is precious and each baby is precious, and the woman is very vulnerable while she is creating life. And so any assistance that she can get to help her navigate that process can be helpful. In addition to being able to access additional resources in regard to that whole birthing process.
Outstanding. Tiffany?
Yes. I have two questions. The first one being, how did you get started with this? Like what brought you to this point where you was like, okay, this is something that I want to do? How did you get to that point?
Yeah. So, my journey, I'm pretty, I've been around for a while, so it goes back quite some time. I think a lot of the work that I do is rooted in, how it's brought up. And, that means that I have always cared about the health and well-being of my community. And some of that started with me being interested in the mental health of our community. So understanding our history and being amazed at, how is it that we have survived all of this, and are we really okay? And recognizing that oftentimes the mental health challenges that come from um, just living as a Black person in this country can be overwhelming. So that became my first love. Eventually, I didn't think that I would ever like research, but then I learned about social behavioral research, which combined um, that thought process of what are the mental and social factors that influence people's health, and how can we study those things in such a way that we can help to improve the health outcomes of not just an individual but of certain communities and populations. And so with that, I also became interested in public health. And so with the study of public health, looking at larger populations and communities, we we recognize that there are certain factors that are really important to improving an individual's health. You really have to think about their interpersonal relationships, their organizations that surround them in their community, whether that be their churches, whether that be their schools, where they go to get their groceries, as well as their broader community. So, what are the dynamics of that community? What are the economic opportunities or the professional opportunities in that community? And then on up through policy. So, what policies dictate all those other opportunities and access points? And what I also looked at was, this concept of health equity. So for me, that is like the central focus of the work that I do, is that everything has to do with health equity in my mind. And so what is health equity? It's really about allowing people to have access to um, all of the resources that are needed to be able to live out the best possible outcome for themselves, right? So the textbook version is health equity means that everyone has a fair and just opportunity to be as healthy as possible, no matter their race, income, neighborhood, gender, ability, or background. And so it requires removing barriers to care, like poverty, discrimination, and lack of access to quality housing, education, food, or health services. So, of course, if you don't have money, then how do you get to a doctor, right? Or even care for yourself, to even go to a pharmacy to be able to get what you need. If you're facing discrimination when you get to the doctor, or even as it relates to work, where maybe your employer won't allow you to take time off, then that can affect your health. Lack of access to quality housing. If you're not able to rest in a place that's peaceful and that is sound and secure, then that's going to affect not just your physical health, but also your mental health. And so all those things are related to addressing health equity and doing things that can help remove those barriers.
Mhm. Very good.
Awesome.
Tanisha?
Appreciate it.
I'm sorry. Go on, Tiffany. Continue.
No, no, my other question was, you was talking about health, and you was first talking about women's health and pregnancy, and you was giving out the statistics among Black women's birth. Do you know what is the root cause for postpartum depression? Like, is it because of the person's their living situation, or maybe the abuse that they could possibly be in as far as like their relationship? Like, what could cause postpartum depression? Or let's just say, I don't know, it's probably very rare, but let's say they don't have any of those issues and they have a good life, and then for whatever reason, they give birth and it's like, a total 180. What could cause that?
Good question. I think one of the main things that we have to recognize is that um, number one, race is a social construct. I was just reading about this earlier today, and I was reminded that when you look at genes, right? there's nothing in those genes from person to person that would necessarily tell you what race they are. So this term of black and white or red or what have you that we have now was created and imposed on us in order to categorize people. It's not necessarily a biological thing. The truth is that when for women, when we get pregnant, our bodies are experiencing a huge shift, right? Many people say that it's a miracle. I'm one of those people that agree. But when you understand the fact that your body is taking the material from a sperm, and with that material is allowing the connection of that sperm to your egg, and those small microscopic entities
Mhm.
create a whole person. Your whole inside shift, your bones shift, your body shifts. And guess what else shifts?
Mhm.
You've got all these
Come on.
hormones, right? All these hormones that are being produced in order for you to do what? Create life, in order for your breasts to be enlarged and be able to get filled up with milk in order to nourish the child. What you're eating in your body is getting digested in a way that is now feeding this new life in your body. So when you just think about the biology that's in it that goes on, there are extreme hormonal shifts that happen after birth, just the release of that life, right? Where your estrogen and your progesterone levels drop sharply, right? So they're
Mhm.
like, "Ooh." The sudden shift can impact your mood, right? Um, there's your thyroid, your neurochemical changes also contribute to depressive symptoms. In addition to that, you may have psychological factors, so you're talking about the brain, the mind, the mental, the emotional, the body, it all works together. So if there are any history of depression in your family, anxiety in your family, and one of the things that we know about the Black community is that we may have um there's a term for it, and I'm missing it right now. But the idea is that when you have generations and generations and generations and generations of oppression, of racism, of violence, of terror, and all those things, oftentimes, you're going to feel depressed, you're going to feel anxious, you're going to feel certain things. And so that those types of mental health challenges, which are a reasonable reaction, right, to that type of stress, it can be also be passed down through your body, right? So if you add on to that any type of trauma that happened during the birth experience, right? Any type of trauma that even happened, in your past life, say it has to do with sexual violence, right? Medical racism, anything like that. Um, Addition to that, fear of failure, unprocessed grief, especially if you had any type of complications, if you've ever experienced loss, all those things can get
Mhm.
compounded after you have a baby. And then, like you mentioned, you can add on to that just the natural things of being a mother: lack of sleep, exhaustion, chronic stress. This is one of the reasons why doulas are so helpful, is because oftentimes they will be the one to come in and step in while that mother is trying to physically recover, mentally, emotionally recover, to help with caring for that brand new baby, right? Financial strain, those things can be stressful. It's expensive to have a baby. It's expensive to be a parent. Okay. And if you have multiple children, if there's anything going on where you're concerned about your job, that's one of the things that came up in my discussion with the two ladies that were on my show when we were talking about this, was her concern about she is a mixed race woman. She identifies as Black. And she talked about how she was, she did what she needed to do to take time off from work, right, in order for her to give birth. But the whole time in the back of her head because of racial stereotypes, because of discrimination, because of racism. She was worried that people would see her as
Mhm.
either taking too much time or not doing enough, or even though there was no evidence at that time that that's what people were saying or thinking, or that her job was somehow in danger, she still had that fear. So you've got to take all these different things you know into account when a woman has a baby that can result in what we consider postpartum depression. And postpartum depression shows up in a lot of different ways. I realized after
Mhm.
the fact that that I went through postpartum depression, and the way that it showed
Mm.
up for me was that I was hyper vigilant. And what was going on in my head was that I was always thinking, oh my God, what if I trip while I'm holding my baby? Is it safe for me to walk down the steps? I was just overly concerned about what if something happens? What if I do
Mm.
something wrong? What if something happens to my baby? And I only have one baby. So I think one of the things that we have to do is recognize that, you know, postpartum depression is very natural. It's very common. It actually, there's a statistic that says 1 in 7 women experience postpartum depression. And for Black women, the rate is estimated to be 40 to 60% higher, but often
Amazing.
goes underdiagnosed and undertreated. Only 15% of women at large with postpartum depression receive professional treatment. So this is an issue that, women experience across the board just because of the um, amazing feat of creating life within your own body and releasing that life through the birth canal or through a C-section, however the baby comes into the world, and everything that comes with that physically, emotionally, socially, right? Sometimes, I don't know about you, but some women I know, had the rude awakening that they thought they had a good support system. And then the baby came and they realized maybe the support system wasn't as strong as they needed it to be.
Mm.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Thank
Amazing.
you.
Tanisha?
I mean, she highlighted a lot of interesting segments of postpartum and then the things that we have to go through as Black women, especially dealing with postpartum. But I did have one question. I was wondering, like, when you have children, or you get pregnant late in your age, like later on, like in your 40s and or close to maybe sometimes your 50s or late 30s, do you think it takes longer for a woman to recoup from when they have postpartum versus if you're a lot younger?
So one thing that I want to share is that
Hmm.
I am not an expert
Okay.
in
Okay. Mhm.
I can talk about these things because I have
Okay.
help, right? And
Okay.
because I've also taught with other people that have expertise in this
Hmm.
area,
Hmm.
but I don't want to come across as though this is my primary, focus and what I do
Okay.
on a day-to-day basis. But I just from, my experience
Hmm.
personally and talking with other folks, I would think absolutely the older that you get, there are different challenges that you face after having a baby that may not be the case when you're younger. It was interesting in preparation for the show I was just talking about, From Birth to Beyond. Um, there was a statistic that kind of shocked me that said that younger women actually have better health outcomes with their pregnancies than older women. And it kind of blew me away because,
Hmm.
I came into this world in the 70s, right? And so with that, I grew up in the 80s and the 90s. And one of the big things that was talked about was, the importance of not becoming a teen mom and waiting until you got your education and waiting until you got uh, a steady job and planning your pregnancy and using condoms, right, for safer sex, and using birth control in order to help you to be able to have a healthy sexual life, but also to be able to control when you wanted to be a parent, when you wanted to be a mother or birth a child. And so one of the things that really kicked off my show, questions you didn't ask, was a discussion about infertility in the African American community. And so that show is very powerful because it was in response to a close friend of mine that went through that. And one of the conversations that she and I had was related to how she attempted to have a child or started to have children, in her 30s, which some might say is old. Some people might say is still very young. And it was after, she had gotten her master's degree. She had, played the field, so to speak, and was ready to really like mentally be ready for parenting. And what she didn't realize was that, her body was no longer able to easily get pregnant, right? And so she needed a lot of medical intervention. And so as a Black woman, we talked about kind of our resentment and sadness and fear around the other side of the conversation that did not happen. And that's one of the reasons why I call my show Questions You Didn't Ask, right? And so it's important for us to think about family planning, but for us not to take it for granted that we can have babies from here until, right? That's always going to be an option, or that our bodies will automatically recover and know what to do. But as you get older, there become different challenges that you have to be ready for, or have different levels of support to help you with that. And I am happy to say that after a large financial investment, after a large mental and emotional investment and physical investment, she now has a beautiful baby girl. And they are living, as we'd like to say, happily ever after.
Awesome.
That's awesome. I did have one more question, William. So I know that you don't really talk about I know that's not your area of specialty as far as like postpartum, but I thought I read an article one time that said that even if a person has a miscarriage or has an abortion, that they still can experience postpartum. Is that correct?
So postpartum has to do with giving birth.
Okay.
Period.
Birth period, just what about, okay, I understand about the birth, okay, but nothing pertaining to the fact that someone can have like a miscarriage or the abortion, because the emotions and hormones are still there.
Can be a lot of different things. A miscarriage,
okay, got it. Mm-hmm.
A miscarriage can be a lot of different things. It can be a person who carries the baby to term and has to give birth. I know a woman who her baby wasn't fully to term, right? But it was at the point where what we consider medically an abortion was no longer feasible. And so she had to, and so that's called a stillbirth, right? There's an extreme amount of grief that goes on with that. There's an extreme amount of grief that goes on with a miscarriage where it's before that 20 weeks, right? So there's a reason why doctors say, you may not want to announce your pregnancy until a certain time, right? And sometimes that's 3 months, right? Or more, 4 months. And so that gives you a higher chance that your pregnancy is viable and that it will go to term. And so a lot of people have miscarriages within that window, where they may be excited, they may be ready to welcome in a new life, and something happens. Some miscarriages, we don't really know why they happen, but we do know that your body is doing a lot of amazing things. And sometimes things can happen out of order. Sometimes certain steps can get skipped. And then that embryo or, may not be forming in a way that the body feels like it can sustain that life. And your body will make a decision. And then you may go from hearing a heartbeat to not hearing a heartbeat. And so all of that can produce emotions. And it's not just emotions for the mother all the time. Sometimes it's emotions from the father. And I think that that's something that we also have to pay attention to, is what are the men in our lives going through regardless of the facade that they put up, and the tough guy that might be presented on a day-to-day basis. But how are they truly feeling, and what are they going through as they, go through this journey of knowing that they're about to be a father, or that the child is there, and all of the other emotions that come along with that.
Mm.
Very good.
Some just run. That's what they
Naisha.
do.
Yeah, but
All right,
wherever you go,
Naisha, I'm
there
going to
you
ask.
are. Once you know, you know.
Mhm.
Absolutely, absolutely. Okay, I'm going to play something in just a second, but and coming back on the other side, I'm going to ask you about how does fear, trauma, and stress play into maybe a miscarriage and or
Mm.
postpartum depression. Right after this.
When trauma tries to silence you, healing becomes an act of courage. Marie McKenzie knows that journey firsthand. Her book, Who Says You Can't Heal? Overcoming and Thriving After a Sexual Assault, is a raw, compassionate guide for survivors. With over 25 years as a nurse and her own story of survival, Marie helps readers find hope, a voice, and strength. If you or someone you love is ready to reclaim life after trauma, this book is for you. Get Who Says You Can't Heal by Marie McKenzie, now available on Amazon.
That's by Marie McKenzie. She's a friend of the station. So anyway, Marie, I hope you were listening to that. So let's go. Naisha, let's talk about this a little bit, because we know that stress, fear, and trauma can cause certain reactions in the body. And how do you think that plays into, they say, miscarriages or post-trauma uh, depression? I'm hearing some feedback from somewhere. Okay.
That's coming from you.
Okay.
All right, no problem.
So,
Now, yes,
yeah, stress, fear, and
yeah,
trauma
continue.
are, yes, are, major factors in our overall health and well-being. The fact that, we cannot, like I said before, wherever we go, there we are. Okay. So no matter what you experience, whether it's with your eyes, your hands, the your ears, the things you hear, right? So let's break it down. The things you hear, the things you see, the things that you um say, things that are said to you, the things that you feel, right? Physically feel. If it's someone that's hurting you physically, all of that can play a part in a number of aspects of our health, right? So whether that's the physical, someone hit you and now, there's a physical reaction from your body, a bruise, a broken bone, whatever else that there might be, right? The things that people say to you and how that may um make you think about yourself, right? And then how all of those things can come together to create certain behaviors. So maybe the way that you behave after that might also affect your health. So whether that's how am I going to cope with this terror that I experience or this trauma that, oh, I'm going to drink or I'm going to use drugs or I'm going to do these other things that might make my body um, deplete the health of my body, right? Or, a variety of things. I also want to say, sometimes it has to do with what you're eating. How am I going to cope? Oh, well, maybe I'm not eating as well as I should. Maybe one of the ways that you're coping is maybe not paying attention to your body, recognizing what your body is telling you. Maybe you're trying to disassociate with your body. Maybe you don't want to accept the fact that you're pregnant, right? Depending on what else is going on in your life. Maybe it's too much for you to deal with. So there's a lot of different things that can come into play in terms of, disturbing the health and well-being of the mother and therefore the child that she may be carrying in her body. I hope that answered your question.
You did. It certainly does. Tia has has a question for you. Doesn't have to do with reproduction, non-production question for the sister. Okay, Tia, what question do you have for Naisha?
Yeah, when she was speaking before, and she was talking about what made her get into this, when she was answering Tiffany's question, one of the things that you said is you were interested in knowing how we were doing in general mentally,
Mm-hmm.
and you know, I grew up on Public Enemy, and there was a speech that they used from Dr. Khalid Muhammad, where he said, "Once we were brought here, we were robbed of our name, we were robbed of our language, we lost our
Mm-hmm.
religion, our culture, our gods, and many of us, by the way we act, we've even lost our minds."
Mm-hmm.
And my question to you is, what do you think about that? Do you have we lost our minds? Are we dealing with a severe, what do you think the effects of psychological slavery have had on us, and how are we? What was your conclusion? Have you come to an answer yet? How are
I
we?
mean, I have ideas. I don't think that there is an answer, right? Because there's so many questions packed in there, and I love questions. And I love this question. I'm also a big fan of Public Enemy. My late father was a big fan of Public Enemy. So I grew up with that sound, with that voice, that Chuck D, in my ears, vibrating through my home. And so there is a lot of truth in what is being said that cannot be denied, right? In regard to what was intentionally stripped and ripped away from us. Um, and was what was also intentionally replaced and put in place. And the oftentimes the decision to revolt or resist was met with terror, right? And was met with death. And so we have to I think that's one of the reasons why we embrace the term we are our ancestors' wildest dream. Because when we think about what our ancestors went through, um, it is a miracle that we are still here. It's a miracle that Willie Brown has this show, has this station, and that all of us are able to speak our truth, right? And speak from our heart and speak from our intellect. I'm not sure that we're all okay. I know I'm not. I'm
Hmm.
not okay. I'm not okay. I can't say that I'm 100% mentally healthy. I had to make a phone call the other day with my therapist that I had disengaged with for a little while because I recognized, wow, you're having a hard time processing emotions related to fear, anger, anxiety, right? What I can say is that there's freedom and there's health in me being able to check in with myself and say, wow, you're not feeling the same way. And there is freedom and there is health and well-being and being able to pick up the phone and make a phone call to another Black woman who is educated, skilled, and talented in the ability to help me navigate that. There's a lot of privilege in being able to have access to mental health care and insurance that will help me pay for it. um, I recognize that not everyone has the opportunity to do that. And I see it play out. You know, a lot what I say in my work as CEO of Naisha Frey Consulting and producer, a host of questions you didn't ask, is that I do what I am and I am what I do. Right. And so this is authenticity speaking. And when I say that, it reflects on a conversation that I was having with some good family friends about how many of us Black people, and this could extend further out, but for the sake of this conversation, we're going to talk about Black people, are walking wounded.
Hmm.
We are walking around with open wounds. And what do I mean when I say that? You all probably already know we're grown, right? We've dealt with a lot of different types of people who can tell you about all the terrible things that have happened to them. They can tell you about what their mama did, what their grandma did. They can tell you about what the police officer did, what that doctor did, what the judge did, what the CO did. They could tell you about that social worker that sold them out. They can tell you about that teacher that played them to the left. They can tell you about all these things that may be 100% true. But the question then is, how are you healing yourself? How are you caring for yourself? What are you doing to help process what happened beyond just being able to name that you're wounded? And many people carry those wounds like a badge, like a reason, a justification. And so, what we have to be careful of is that we don't
Mm.
allow that to stunt our growth. And that we don't allow that to, this is just my opinion, stop us from moving beyond those experiences, learning from those experiences. Because one of the greatest gifts I think that we all have is the gift of time and wisdom, as long as we're still alive, right? Some of us also think about the gift of, if this is, in your belief realm, the gift of either the Holy Spirit, the ancestors, those voices that speak to you and tell you to go left and not right. And how you can use those experiences to teach you and show you how to be better, but also how to lean on professionals who care about your well-being and are equipped to know how to guide you and help you process that, so that you don't just stay stuck in that.
Can I piggyback off of that? I read somewhere, I want to say it was Breaking the Chains of Psychological Slavery, but someone, I can't tell exactly who said it, but they said that after slavery, a team of psychiatrists should have been brought into every plantation to talk to these newly freed people and let them know, what happened to them wasn't their fault, and to tell them how to deal with the trauma, the Holocaust that they just exited from. Do you think it's too late for something like that? Or do you
No,
think
and
that would
I, but
even be
I, but I will,
beneficial?
I will say this. I will say this. So one of my things, mhm, that I've been talking a lot about is the Get Your People campaign. Now, what I consider the Get Your People campaign is that white people need to be deprogrammed from this white supremacy and racism that they created and inflicted upon us and the rest of the world.
Mm-hmm.
We have helped each other. We have taught each other. We have nurtured each other. Some people healed better than others, despite it all. But what continues to be a problem for us is the power structures and systems that continue to attempt to oppress us,
Mm-hmm.
that continue to try to hold us back, hold us down, tell us that we are not worthy, um, that continue to reinforce messages of we don't help each other, we don't work together, we don't, our community is so broken and our community is so violent. How,
Mm-hmm.
and I was I'm getting ready to have a show. I'm so excited. And I hope that you guys tune in this season, where we're going to be talking to some amazing scholars, one of which is Dr. William Darity, who also goes by Sandy Darity. I'm looking forward to this discussion being series 4. So I record my stuff way in advance and then send it out later. You guys do the on the spot stuff, which is amazing. But one of the things that he said to in an interview one time, or a talk that he gave, which is very similar to a lot of other Black freedom speakers and truth talkers, right? Is he was speaking to a white man about violence in the Black community. And he corrected him and said, your culture, your people, your community are some of the most violent people historically on this planet.
Mm-hmm.
It's true.
I'm not saying that we
Yeah.
don't have
Right.
issues with violence.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not saying that we don't have issues with self-hate. I'm not saying we don't have issues with mental health challenges. I just said many of us
Mm-hmm.
are walking wounded. But when folks from the outside want to say, oh, black on black crime, no, 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 it is crime. Remember how I reframed the whole thing about postpartum depression and all this kind of stuff? These are things that the human nature does. You can't go anywhere on the planet and not find groups of people that fight each other. There is conflict and discord. Sometimes it gets more violent than others. So this idea that somehow we are more violent than others and that we do it to ourselves, again, can we start no, we don't need to do nothing. They need to get on a Get Your People campaign and help to deprogram their mindset so we can live, so we can thrive. Because what you find, we talked about after slavery, there were no psychologists. But guess what? You know what happened after slavery? Black Wall Street. Mm-hmm. Some of we had more political government Black elected officials up to the federal, not to mention the state and local levels, than any time in history.
Right. That's true. Mm-hmm.
So this idea that we need to pathologize ourselves or allow other people to pathologize us. If you went through the same thing, how would you look? If you were going through the same thing, how would you feel? We're human. We're human. So I don't think that it's a matter of, I think that oftentimes if we were allowed to just live and be and thrive and help each other, we would be okay. Because if we could get rid of a lot of these distractions and barriers, remember I talked about how health equity is about removing barriers, obstructionists, people that are obstructionists, institutions that are obstructions, policies, procedures, bureaucracies that are obstructions to progress, to our progress specifically. They will cut their nose to spite their face just to stop us. They will harm themselves just to make sure that we don't get where we need to go. But if we were able to remove all those obstructions, barriers, whatever you want to call them, I think we'd be okay. Yes, I honestly do. Okay. We would have problems. Like ain't nobody, and that's the other thing. Can we please stop thinking that there's going to be a time when we're not going to have no problems? Can you show me a culture, a country, a community? Even Sweden got problems, and they love to talk about Sweden. People got problems,
and we know why. Problems. That's right. You know something else, Naisha. We can't fall into these traps, and what I mean by that, they said, "Oh, you woke. Oh, she was a DEI hire." Like that's a bad thing. And if they really knew, they know the real definition, diversity, equity, and inclusion. But see, they're saying, he got that job because he's Black. No. Every job I had, and I worked in jobs where it was predominantly white, I thrived and was in the top of the class, okay? But see, and we can't believe these lies. And it goes back to a story that I read a long time ago. It was talking about this elephant that was chained up. And they took the chain off the elephant and just tied a little rope that elephant could easily break away from. But because he thought he was still in bondage, he did not break that rope. And I think we need to get rid of that mentality. We need to get rid of that mentality and let our people know that it's okay if you need help. Because in our neighborhoods, saying that I am mentally ill or I have a mental issue, it was taboo to even talk about it. So a lot of people ignore that. And it's something that you said, I'm looking at something else that you wrote, and you talk about cultural advocacy and community-rooted storytelling. What do you mean by that?
So I think it's a lot of what you do. We're doing a lot of the same work, right? We're advocating for our community. We're saying this is who we are. This is who we really are. And we're also introducing to a broader audience different people that don't get a platform, that don't get to be exposed unless we create the platform, right? So one of my favorite quotes that I've been hanging on to for past year, maybe two, is the place in which I'll fit into will not exist until I make it, by James Baldwin.
Hello, James Baldwin.
The place in which I'll fit into will not exist until I make it.
That's good.
Wow.
Powerful.
And so this is what we're doing, right? We're making
That's
that
right.
space.
love
And
it.
so
I
I
love
think that's a big part of what, cultural advocacy, community storytelling is that we are unearthing the jewels and the treasures of our community, the skills, the talents, the resources of our community. That's something that I really love to do in my podcast and with my newsletter. And I encourage people to go to my website, naishafrey.com, sign up for my newsletter. Follow me on social media. I'm not on Facebook and Instagram because Meta has problems when it comes to DEI and a number of other things.
Mhm.
But for those who are there, power to you, hold it down, do what you got to do. But one of the things that I do with my show is I don't just, undress these problems and talk about these issues like we're doing here today, but I also challenge or invite my guests rather to share who inspires you. What are some use cases of how we are currently overcoming these challenges? Who's doing the work? What is the policies that we can get behind? So with my most recent newsletter, I even talk about what are the political action committees that we need to be investing in that are
Yeah.
supporting candidates that care about our issues, right? And so a lot of these political action groups are out there doing the work, but we don't know about it because the primary news outlets and communication outlets, they're not going to talk about that. They're not going to talk, but they exist. And so we have to create those communication outlets and platforms to share those resources. And so at the end of each podcast series, and I usually do a series, and there's usually about 4 episodes in each series, so that we can go deep. I share resources. I share resources on social media, and I also share resources in the newsletter. So feel free, go on naishafrey.com and sign up for my newsletter. There's a nice little contact page you can fill out. And there's also on the home page and some of the other pages, I ask people all the time, put in your email address if you're interested in learning more. And I share those resources so we can continue to support each other and lift each other up and continue to facilitate hope and faith in real time.
Wow. I can't believe we have 2 minutes. So we're going to go around the panel real quick and starting with Tanisha. This always happens when Naisha comes on. That hour just goes just like that. Tanisha.
I was going to be funny, William, and ask you, what is DEI? William, what is it? Let me stop.
Oh, yes. Are you joking? Okay.
You don't remember.
Diversity,
You don't
equity, and inclusion.
I know. Okay, I just messing. Okay, no, I know it's an inside joke. I'm sorry, Naisha. But no, I just wanted to say, thank you for your information surrounding postpartum, and just the the stats as far as African American women as far as dying when it comes to childbirth, and I really appreciate the information and the literature on that too as well. And I was going to make a comment. I know there's been some discussions and stuff like that back and forth about women that have abortions. I remember reading an article a long time ago, like in 12th or 8th grade, and they actually said that women, and not saying I'm saying I was supporting abortions, but they also said women that actually have abortions sometimes have higher self-esteem than women that actually have the children, because if they know they have to go and prepare for their future, they know that if they have a child, they're not prepared for it, that therefore that it would be a hindrance in them to be able to reach their goals, and that they wouldn't be a fit parent. So that a lot of times they go and make that decision to actually go have an abortion versus having the child. So I just thought maybe I'd just bring that up too as well. So I don't know. Just some food for thought. Yeah. I used to read a lot of literature back in the day.
Yeah, that's good. Keep reading.
Yeah.
And check your sources. Double, triple check your
I
sources.
know. Yeah. Yeah. That's true. Oprah Winfrey, maybe. I don't know. But
Okay.
um,
There's a question in the audience. One of our
mhm.
audience members, Talaric, he's a national recording, as a matter of fact, maybe international recording artist. And his question is, are there any safeguards in place or case law existing regarding a child becoming legally adopted by potential parents whereupon one of the adopting parents, if not both, are a result of a transgender operation or operations?
And I see that we're over time. I'm glad to continue this conversation and for a part three sometime moving forward. I am not a lawyer,
Let's
so
do
I
it.
cannot answer that question. But I will tell you because I kind of see some of the undertones there. I am a LGBTQIA plus community affirming health equity professional, and so I don't think that I don't know, but I don't I just that's the best I can do is just say that I don't know if there are any laws against transgender people adopting children.
All right. Well, that's a wrap. Hey, Tierra, Tanisha, Tiffany, uh, thank you so much for doing this. And there has to be Naisha. Yep, we have to have a part three. We must have a part three. Thank you so much.
Mhm.
This has been enlightening. It's been very
Mhm.
educational. I'm sure that our audience enjoyed it. I enjoyed it, and I believe our panel did
Mhm.
also. So, guys, thank
Absolutely.
you so much. Another
Thank
episode of
you.
Groove Swing Speaks, ladies and gentlemen. And keep it locked
Mhm.
right here on Studio W, The Buzz, your global radio network. Hey, enjoy your Tuesday, everyone.
Good night.